In order to meet Queen Himiko to get access to North Ryushima and later Oni Island, one must cross over the Sea of Lava. You are intended to do this by first acquiring the Fire Tablet, which requires completing the Imperial Palace, freeing Kaguya, and doing a digging minigame to send her to space. However, it's just barely possible to cross this lava without touching it, avoiding the need to collect the Fire Tablet. This jump is what we refer to as Fire Tablet Skip, and it basically involves a precise starting position followed by 5 frame perfect or very strict inputs at 30 FPS, making it the hardest trick in Okami New Game speedruns. I'll start by discussing the setup I use for Fire Tablet Skip, before going into the various routing considerations associated with it. Once you've entered Himiko's palace, begin by building Gold Dash at ground floor, since it's a lot faster than building it at the upper level. Preserve Dash into the elevator by jumping and or tackling into the trigger. At the top of the elevator, during the first Fire Tab Skip only, you'll need to clear Isun's text trigger, where he says you'll need something else to help you cross the lava. This trigger happens to be an auto stop, so you don't need to jump into it. Skip the text, then tackle jump back into the doorway from the elevator. The first thing we need to do is set up our position. A successful tab skip requires you to jump from the very edge of the pier. If you don't start from the right position, then there won't be even a single frame during your run-up where you can input jump and successfully perform the trick. To set your position, double jump into the doorway from behind to get a fixed position. Make sure you're holding the analog stick up while rising to jam Ami into the corner formed by the doorway and the ceiling, but let go of the stick immediately afterwards so you don't drift forward on your way down. Then, perform a max height jump by holding the jump button while leaving the analog stick completely neutral. On your way down, press and hold the Celestial Brush button. The brush can be used as a weak form of pause buffering, allowing us to buffer analog inputs and button releases, but not button presses. Furthermore, consecutive brush buffers almost always advance the game by at least 2 frames. The purpose of this particular brush buffer is to confirm Ami's height so we can consistently start drifting forward at the same height each attempt, giving us a consistent position from which to start our dash toward the lava. It happens to be that if you're holding straight up when Ami's paws line up with the rectangular rod at the bottom of the first curtain, you'll get a position which works for tab skip. You can repeatedly do neutral full jumps until you catch this frame with the brush. Make sure you're holding perfectly straight up and not to either side, then release the brush button. It should be noted that there are 2 possible camera angles in this area. The first is the default far camera that you get from exiting the elevator, and the second is the close camera you get when you respawn after falling into the lava. The position setup I described conveniently works the same way for either camera, so there's no need to prefer one or the other. That said, you can quickly reset to the far camera by going a bit further back into the elevator, which might happen accidentally when resetting the trick sometimes. Just before you reach the very edge of the pier, press and hold jump, then press brush so you can confirm your jump frame. In Okami, every additional frame you hold jump increases your jump height a little, up to the maximum height. To do tab skip, we need the maximum jump height that won't cause Ami to hit the ceiling of the first doorway and lose all her speed. This is where the ability to brush buffer button releases comes in handy. In this case, we want to release jump on the 4th frame after pressing it. Because brush buffering can only consistently advance 2 frames, releasing jump is effectively frame perfect with or without the buffer. However, it's pretty easy to get consistent at tapping the brush on frame 2 of jump just by using your internal timing, and then tapping again to advance to frame 4, which is my preferred method. Pressing jump to start with is also frame perfect. If you do it too early, you'll hit the ceiling of the first doorway, and if you do it too late, you'll hit the low invisible wall that prevents you from walking off the platform, losing all of your speed. If you're more than a frame late on the jump, you'll lose your dash as well, forcing you to restore it. You can restore Gold Dash without taking the elevator back down by tackling from a position far enough to avoid bonking or hitting the elevator trigger, then covering the remaining length of the platform, then jumping to turn around. Repeat this a few times until you get Gold Dash, then do the position setup again. If you hit the correct frame on both the jump start and release, you'll just barely fly under the first doorway, landing about 3/4 the way across the second lava room. At this point, time your double jump to start just before you hit the lava, and perform another brush buffer. Try to hit either frames 1 or 2 of your double jump with your first buffer, then buffer 2 more times to advance to frame 5 or 6 of your double jump before releasing the jump button with the brush button. I'm not 100% certain, but I believe starting the double jump is frame perfect, and releasing the double jump has a 2-frame window. Regardless of the exact window, I simply go for the same input each time. Start the double jump as late as possible, then do 3 brush buffers. On your way down from your double jump, time an air tackle. The final input seems to be fairly lenient, but I don't know the exact window. It should be enough to manually time this. You'll most likely just clip over the low invisible wall on the other side, but it's possible to get stuck behind the invisible wall yet remain on the platform. If this happens, just jump again and tackle to build dash again. Either way, congratulations, you've done Fire Tablet Skip. At this point, I recommend doing whatever you have to do in Himiko's chamber, then saving at the origin mirror outside of it. This will serve as a practice save for the trick. In order to leave the palace, you'll have to jump over the lava sea again. Thankfully, this reverse Fire Tablet Skip is much easier than the forward variant. I basically go for a high jump at the edge of the platform, followed by a slightly lower jump just before hitting the lava, followed by an air tackle on the way down. This is totally viable without buffering, and you should be able to get relatively consistent at it with practice. Now for routing stuff. Since this trick is so difficult, it's basically only worth doing if you're already doing City Checkpoint Skip, i.e. the advanced route. This means you need to collect Fire Burst to replace Inferno in Waku Shrine. Normally to get Fire Burst, you must defeat Blight in order to restore Seon so that you can access the restaurant interior and talk to Yama. If this were the case, all tab skip would actually skip would be the digging minigame with Kaguya, which would be far from worth it. Fortunately, you can get Fire Burst early using an interior clip. Check out Tsunakon's video linked in the description for another demonstration. These two tricks together allow you to skip getting Rao's prayer slips, the sunken ship, and the entire Imperial Palace, saving about 20 minutes total. Unfortunately, you need to cross the lava sea twice in the run, once to meet Himiko and obtain the pass to North Rio, and once after killing Arahime's husband to fight Evil Rao. It's pretty unlikely that you'll ever get a run with 2 first try tab skips, so saving the full 20 minutes is pretty much out of reach for humans. Anyway, skipping the Imperial Palace means skipping Veil of Mist, which means a couple of things have to be done differently in the route. To start, you need to actually get into Himiko's palace to begin with. The fastest way to do this is to approach the guards who normally teleport you outside the walls. Without hitting their trigger, bite one of the guards and drag them back a short distance. This may require 2 bites. Now, without touching the trigger, get between them and the entrance. Then tackle them so you bounce toward the palace. Press the confirm button to clear the guard's anger text and mash tackle towards the palace again. With any luck, you'll clear the teleportation trigger and be able to go straight into the palace. An alternative method to get into the palace, which loses about 15 seconds, is to abuse the lack of collision at the bottom of the canals in the aristocratic quarter to do an interior clip as shown here. Jump into the western treasure room and leave to be placed within the palace walls. Regardless of your method, you only have to get into the palace this way once, since you're automatically placed within the palace walls during the Evil Rao sequence. Veil of Mist is only an intended requirement a few other times in the run. Blocking spiders can be bypassed entirely by running into them, although they can be skipped entirely in Oni Island using this camera clip discovered by Giant Cookie Jar, link in the description. In Waku Shrine, you have to cross these fast-moving gears before getting Blizzard, but fortunately, Fire Burst has the same slowdown effect as VM, though more brief. Alternatively, you can use a tackle bounce to make it up to this platform. After performing Nechku Skip, you'll need to defeat the Gold Cannon to progress, which is where Fire Burst's slowdown effect comes in handy again. Note that Fire Burst does lock you out of using the brush for a few seconds after using it, so you'll need to time things correctly to make sure the cannon's shot doesn't hit the ground before you can power slash it. To defeat Blight without VM, simply wait until he does this spinning sword attack, then use SFS Cherry Bombs to defeat him. Before that, make sure you jump over his quick draw attack to avoid taking damage and losing money. As a footnote, normally you get a Holy Bone S during the Isun tutorial in Imperial Palace, which is later used during the Water Dragon Acid Swim. You can just buy one to replace it. It should be mentioned that, since Fire Tablet Skip lets you get to North Ryoshima without doing Imperial Palace, some routing options are opened up. You can get to North Rio without Galestorm, which is normally required to obtain Veil of Mist. This means you can go do both CC Skip and the first tab skip as soon as you've obtained Water Spout, which is required to bloom Ryoshima. This puts both tricks about 20 minutes earlier in the run, reducing the time before potential resets. Unfortunately, nothing can be done to make the second fire tablet skip earlier in the run, as it is absolutely required to complete Inside the Dragon before the Evil Row sequence begins. This is the route used in my current PB, the world record at the time of writing, but it's technically about 10 to 20 seconds slower than doing CC skip and the rest after Gale Shrine, solely due to requiring a bit more movement in the overworld. It would be 30 to 40 seconds slower, but having double jump in Gale Shrine enables you to do a 20-second time saver when leaving after getting Gale Storm, link in the description. That's all I can think to say on Fire Tablet Skip. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments, on my Twitter, or in the Okami Speedrunning Discord, links once again in the description. Ciao.